What is up, everybody? Oh, crap. Looks like the chat's not working here. All right, we'll go with that chat then. What's going on, everybody? We're live here. Thanks for joining me this morning. A couple things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, finally hired my replacement at Aluna. If you've been following along with me, you know this has been 2 months in the works. Finally did that. I'm going to talk about where I'm at in my job interview processes with, companies like Twitch, YouTube, PayPal, and then, some other things. How my streams work is typically I talk for about 10 to 15 minutes about the subjects that I have on the top of my mind, like I just kind of mentioned, and then I open it up to Q&A. So if it is your first time here, go ahead and start asking a bunch of questions. Basically, I play catch up with the chat once I'm done with my little speech, if you will. And then as always, if if your question is buried at the bottom, you can super chat to move that up to the top, and I'll answer that right away. If you want your question bumped up, or if you just want to support the channel, that is always appreciated. So let's just kind of get right into the topics that I was going to talk about here. So like I said, we finally hired my replacement at Aluna. His name is Chris. He just started April 1st on Monday. So if you want to follow along with that journey, we're doing a podcast, and I put out a video just yesterday, I believe, just sitting down with him, talking about how his first week went. So if you're really interested in what it's like as your first iOS developer job, and diving into a code base, learning all that stuff for the very first time, definitely follow that show on the podcast. It's called The First Month, and the podcast is called iOS Dev Discussions, if you're not aware. And again, if you want to check out what that's all about, look at my channel from yesterday. I just put a little half-hour video up, and it's just he and I sitting down talking about how his first week went. So I think that's going to be a really good, interesting show for those of you that are trying to become iOS developers. You haven't had that first job yet. And I think that'll be really interesting to follow along, just to see how he's handling it, the kind of stuff he's working on, and how all that's going. So definitely check that out if you're interested in that sort of thing. How that kind of parlays into me and my stuff. So I'm going to be leaving Aluna basically as soon as I land a job. My interviews are starting to pick up at the second half of April. I believe the 15th and the 18th of this month, I have my initial phone screens with Robinhood, which is like a stocks and trading app here in the United States, and then also with Twitch, which you may be familiar with, you're streaming video games. And then later in the month, I have final interviews with PayPal and YouTube. Kind of got fast tracked to the final interviews on those two. I think I told that story last time. So I'm basically, now that I'm back from London in my talk, and if you haven't seen how my London trip went on my very first talk ever, again, about 2 or 3 days ago, I put up a video recapping all that. You can check that out on the channel as well. But London went great. I really, really enjoyed it. To be honest with you, I was dreading the trip a little bit. It's just a hassle. International travel is just a hassle. And who likes to sit on a plane for 10 and a half hours, right? That's no fun. But once I got there, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. Giving the talk was fun. Talking to everybody at the conference was awesome. But again, more on that in the video. So now that that's all behind me, right? Like I was preparing for that. Like I stopped playing basketball even to prepare for all that stuff. Now that that's behind me, the next major milestone is, again, preparing for these job interviews and hopefully landing a job at one of these major companies. Again, I have it down to just these 4 companies at first. Again, Robinhood, Twitch, PayPal, YouTube. And if those don't work out, then I'll kind of expand the companies. But I'm really hoping one of these works out. And that's what I'm focusing on for now. So job interview prep time. Last time I did this, I did the job hunt mega vlog where I vlogged the whole thing, the interview process. Not doing that this time. That was like a lot of work. And I was spending more time than I probably should have creating the vlog, more so than like actually studying for the interview. So we're just focusing on studying this time around, and I'll probably do a recap video at the end of how it went, but I'm not creating a vlog along the way. I'm using a new site to prepare for interviews called Interview Cake. I never heard of it before. It was kind of recommended to me by one of the hiring managers at one of these companies, and he kind of had a very good review of it. So I'll give it a try. It costs money. It's pretty expensive, not gonna lie, but I know everybody always asks, what are you doing to prepare? How do you prepare for these interviews? What do you use? So letting you know, it's a website called Interview Cake. You can Google that, check that out. I just started it like 2 days ago, so I'll probably let you know in the next stream how it went and what do I think of it, and I'll probably do a video on it or something like that too. But that's what I'm using to prepare, and again, it's a bunch of practice problems, just getting ready. And I'm also focusing on iOS fundamentals because, PayPal and YouTube, they're mostly Objective-C, not a lot of Swift. So my Swift knowledge isn't really going to be that I don't know, useful is a bad word, but right, like they're not going to be quizzing me on like the latest in Swift, right? It's going to be iOS fundamentals, stuff like the responder chain, UI kit, like just the fundamentals of how, iOS and UI kit works, more so than the latest in Swift. So that's what I'm shifting my focus on for the iOS stuff. And again, for the data structures and algorithms, computer science stuff, I'm, doing Interview Cake, which is a bunch of like practice problems, kind of like Leak Code if you've ever done that. So that's how I'm preparing for these interviews. And again, they're all at the end of this month. So I won't know by next live stream at the beginning of May, but hopefully in May, I will know my next chapter in my career. Hopefully so fingers crossed. So that's kind of my job hunt update, where I'm at. So I want to put out something. I'll wait on this. I'll ask this later when there's more people here. People are still kind of rolling in. So one quick question that I thought of. Would you watch a live stream of the WWDC keynote? Like if I did a live stream with the keynote up and it's me reacting to it and us, chatting about it in the chat as things are announced, is that something, you would join? I don't know if I'm going to do that yet because, like I said, I could be at a new job and I might not have the freedom to be here live streaming WWDC during the week. So that's why it's a maybe, but I'm kind of wondering if, that would even be something you'd be interested in. So let me catch up on the chat a little bit, and then as more people come in, there's one more question I want to ask about a potential side project, but I'll wait for more people to come in as people are still rolling in. So let's catch up on some questions. And again, if your question is at the bottom of the list, super chats are appreciated. Let's get to it here. So Mila Cohen says, question, is that correct that we tend to use structs and not classes in Swift these days? I would say, obviously the answer is it depends, right? If you don't need inheritance, use a struct. Structs are more performant because they're more lightweight and they're just copied around. I don't know. It depends, but yeah, I do think there is a trend towards people leaning more towards structs, but it's not absolute. Like use structs, not classes. But I do think people tend more towards structs as long as they're a reasonable size. Because if a struct gets really, really huge, again, that struct is getting copied around all the time. And if it's really, really huge, you might lose that performance. But yeah. Go Fudge Yourself says, hey, Sean, I'm from India. You have told many times that you started your programming career at 32. That is true. But in countries like India, no one will hire you if you just started programming at 32, even if you have good knowledge about the subject which you're studying. That kind of sucks. What are your thoughts on this unfair trend in developing countries where older people are not given fair chances like younger ones? Have you faced the same issue in Silicon Valley at the start? So to answer the last one, not at all. In fact, a lot of the developers I know are early 30s, mid 30s. I think people have the misconception that Silicon Valley is like this young man's game where it's like the young person's game where it's like, all a bunch of 23-year-olds running around or 25-year-olds. And that is absolutely not the case at all. So I don't see that age discrimination in Silicon Valley. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure it does, but it's not prevalent like it sounds like you're experiencing. And to be honest with you, if that is I don't know the culture. I've never been to India. I don't know. But if that is the culture and no one's going to hire you no matter what, and you desperately want to be a developer, that's like your dream, you might have to leave India. I know that's way, way easier said than done. I'm sure you have family there, but I'm just a big believer in like, you have choices. Like if you really, really want something, you can make choices to make it happen. It's just, are you willing to make those choices? Which I'm not judging you if you're not. I'm just saying that you are allowed to leave the country if this country is discriminating against you. And this is what you really, really want to do. More in the chat. Go Fudge Yourself also says, great talk at iOS Conf. Keep up the great work. Appreciate that. How can I practice Swift on Windows while I'm waiting to get my Mac? I'm not sure. I've never had to do that. I do know Swift is early stages of working on Windows, but I don't think that's what you're talking about. So I'm not quite sure there. Avars is here. Avar says, hello, Sean. Rare case when I managed to jump in the live stream. Yeah, good to see Avars. Avars has been around forever, since the beginning. And definitely check him out on Instagram. He's got a good page there. Doing awesome stuff over on Instagram, so check him out there. Kevin Texera says, what's up? Gainey says, what are your thoughts on Flutter? I guess let's get this out of the way real quick. I feel like I answer this every live stream. I'm hopeful for it. I hope it does well. I always say cross-platform or whatever you want to call it, non-native, cross-platform, whatever, definitely has this business use case. It's a business decision. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. So I hope it does well. So there's a good option for that business case where it does make sense. However, I think more often than not, it makes sense to go native, but there's certainly cases where using something like Flutter is fine. So for that reason, I do hope it succeeds because it's good to have options. Robert Ramirez says, how could you improve/automate your new dev onboarding at Aluna? Robert, I don't know. This is my first time ever, bringing on a new person that's on the team, where like the team was just me, like the iOS team anyway. So it's like, this is my first time ever kind of like onboarding a new junior dev. So yeah, talk to me in like 3 weeks. We're only 1 week into it, so I'm still kind of learning as I go. So too early to answer there, but I'm sure I'll have some tips later. Greg says, hi, Sean. I enjoyed to watch your content from the UK. Appreciate that, Greg. I know you're in Ireland, right? So you weren't too far away. It would have been cool if you could have made it over. Liam with a super chat. Liam, always super generous. Appreciate that. Do you use coconut oil on your beard? It is so majestic. So I don't think it's coconut oil. It is beard oil. It's called like Spartan's Den or something like that. So I had this conversation with Jason. I don't know if he's in here. You might be. The other day in the Slack. He was asking about the beard as well. And really the trick is the blow dryer. Like before I would just put oil in it and get out of the shower and it would just be like everywhere. And you can even see it in some of my old videos. It's really, really wild looking. But then I discovered using oil and then a blow dryer to like comb it while it was wet. And now it gets straight. Now it looks good. Now I can like style it. So that is the secret there. And again, thanks so much, Liam, for the super chats. Appreciate that. You're always so super generous. Definitely doesn't go unnoticed. Greatly appreciated. All right. Back to the chat. Okay, so now we have a decent number of people in here. Let me ask the question I wanted to ask about my potential side project. So I've mentioned this before, but I want to do like a gaming nights with Sean, where I stream on Twitch and I just play, I don't know, random games. Maybe I'll bring in people from the iOS dev community, well-known or not so well-known developers, and play with them. Bring on people from the audience. It's just a way to like hang out with the community and build that deeper relationship and have some fun along the way. Maybe have a few drinks, play some video games. Just wondering if anybody would be interested in that. Would you be interested in like playing along in the games, or would you just watch it? Because it's quite an investment to like build a stream setup and do all that. So I'm kind of gauging if like, do you guys not even care about that? Or is that something you'd be interested in, you'd want to watch? I will say that you will see a very, very different Sean. Like I have to be PG and watch what I say on here because YouTube algorithm, get demonetized, all that stuff. When I'm playing like a competitive video game, or if I'm on the basketball court, like I get pretty fired up. There's a different Sean there. So I have to give that warning, but I'm kind of curious, what the interest is, if people would join for that. Cause again, like I said, it is quite an investment to buy the streaming machine, set all that up. So I think it'll be fun, but I want to kind of gauge interest to see, if people would even show up for that. All right, let me get back to the questions here. Shabazz says, hi, sir. Do you have any advanced courses on Udemy? So I don't use Udemy. I will be coming out with courses hopefully by the end of the year. I wanted to have it done by mid-year, but I'm doing another project that's going to take that mid-year slot. So I'm moving the course back to the end of the year. But I'm just going to launch that myself. Udemy for the teachers isn't the greatest. They take like 50% of the cost of the course, unless you drive your own traffic. And basically, Udemy's great if you don't already have an audience. If you already have an audience, Udemy's not so great. So I'm not going to put it on Udemy. But look by the end of the year, and you should see that. Ivar says he would watch the live stream. Sweet, sweet, sweet. I would watch that. Oh, crap, my chat is always jumping around. Samika says, I would watch that. Armand, hey bro, I want a professional iOS developer. Can you tell me how I can start learning because I'm new? Watching channels like this will certainly help you out. There's great websites like hackingwithswift.com, raywenderlich.com. All those links are in the description in the video you're watching. And full disclosure, those are like affiliate links, so I will get a little kickback if you decide to use those links. But those are what I use to learn. Highly recommended. Start doing that and just be patient. Like it's going to take a very, very long time. Danny says, hi all, Allentown, PA here. Hey Danny, I'm actually from Erie, PA, so a little far away, but same state anyway. Toby Johnson says, but about struct this, Sean Allen, there's a new buffer Copyonwrite to solve this long struct issue. I think it was introduced in WWDC 2018, so long structs are no problem. I'll have to look into that. I'm familiar with Copyonwrite. I wasn't familiar with it that solved the huge structs problem, but I'll definitely take a look. Yeah, Josh Adams says he's 43. Danny Uff is 52. Like I learned at 32. again, I really think that, you have to be a young child prodigy to be a coder thing is just a strong misconception. And that's absolutely not the case. Like I said, a lot of the developers I've worked with here in Silicon Valley have been my age or older. I mean, it's the misconception that it's got to be a young man, person. I keep saying man. The young man's game is like this saying. That's why I keep saying that. I don't mean to be sexist. It's not my intent. Noah Woodward says, hey, Sean, I thought I would drop in. How's the job search interview prep going? Hey, Noah, I think you just missed that. I went over all of that probably about 5 minutes before you came in. So for those that have been here, I don't want to rehash that. But watch the replay when it pops up. And like the first 10 minutes of the replay, I talk all about that. But it's going well. And I'm just kind of getting started. By the end of the month, I'll have a lot more information on that. Chandan says, how data structures and algorithms are important for app development and how frequently data structures and algorithms are used in app development. So I'm going to assume you mean like not just do we use data structures. Of course, we use things like arrays and strings and all that stuff. But I think you might be talking about what you have to learn for like job interviews. Not so much in your day-to-day. It comes in handy rarely. But most of the time when I'm learning this stuff, I'm learning it specifically for the job interviews. Nicola says, hey, Sean, is there any chance you will make RxWif tutorials? I want to switch to MVVM, and that's the first time I've been introduced to Rx as a method for data binding. Not anytime soon, because I've dabbled in RxWif, but I've never used it on a real project. Same thing with MVVM. Like, I understand how it works, but I've never built a real project with it. And I don't want to make a video on something right now anyway, until I've like really used it a lot. So in the case of RxWif and MVVM, I would have to like sit down and learn it just to make a video. And the flat out truth is like I do a lot, podcast, videos, playing basketball, working a full-time job. Like I just really don't have time to sit and learn RxWif just for the sake of a video. Now, like I said, if I go to a project where they're using RxWif and I start learning it, then you'll probably see more videos. So really that's how I come up with my videos. It's what I'm doing in my day-to-day job. I say, oh, that's a cool idea. And then I like make videos about it. So until I run into that in real life, I probably won't make any videos. Reza says, hi, I'm from Iran. I want to know, in the way you started from 0 to now, was there any time that you got stuck so much that you wanted to quit and say, I'm not good at this? So I definitely got stuck. Like nobody learns and doesn't get stuck. Like that's not going to happen. But I never wanted to quit because I enjoyed it so much. Like just the fact that you can like type on your keyboard a little bit and like make magic happen on your screen kind of like was just amazing to me. And there's definitely times I got discouraged for sure. I'm not going to say I was never like down on myself, but it never was to the point where I thought about quitting or I thought about like doing something else. Because the main thing I like about this job or this career, this profession is that it's just you against the problem, right? So for example, I was in like sales and marketing before I did this. So it's like, if somebody didn't close a sale, somebody didn't say yes, like that was, yes, I have to do a good job as a salesperson, but at the end of the day, like their decision is what affects my performance. And I didn't like that, right? Because for example, what really pushed me over the edge to do programming was I had a major sale, they had committed and everything, and they like backed out at the last second. And that really got me down. That got me down to the point where I was like, I'm quitting sales. This is stupid. So I love the fact about programming that it's just one-on-one, me against the problem, me against the feature, me against whatever I'm building. And it's my skills alone that I'm judged on for the most part. So that's why I kind of like this. And always having that drive behind that never led me to quit. Because again, I said, this is one-on-one. Right now I'm losing this one-on-one fight with this problem that has me down. But I'm going to win. And that's kind of what I did here. So, okay. Sandash says, another 2 months to go before I get my first Mac. Confused between Mac Mini 28 and MacBook Pro 2017, especially because of the butterfly keyboard issue. What's your suggestion, Sean? I mean, they're both fine for development. It's kind of a personal preference thing. Like you said, if you're really, really worried about the keyboard, then go with a Mac Mini and an external keyboard. I would probably, the setup I always like is the MacBook Pro with an external monitor and an external keyboard and have your MacBook in clamshell mode. It gives you the best of both worlds. If you need to be portable, you have the laptop. Yeah, then you have the butterfly keyboard issue, but my laptop is in clamshell mode 90% of the time. So I like never even use that keyboard. So that's the setup I like to go with. That's what I would do. Mythical Music says, do you think it would ever be possible to compile Xcode project to Android, even though it's written in Swift? There's been rumors about you can be able to write Android apps in Swift. That's been rumored for a while. We'll see. Stay tuned for that. I don't know. Can you make a tutorial about table views? I have like 3 or 4 of those, Danny, if you go back on my channel, or just search UI table views Sean Allen in Google and I should pop up. I think I've done like 2 or 3 videos on that. Those are some of my older, very first videos though. But they're there and they're still applicable. Toby Johnson says, if it was Dota 2, I would watch. Okay, so I think a lot of people definitely would be like depending on the game for sure, and I understand that. I don't play Dota 2. The only MOBA I've played was Heroes of the Storm, which I know is like a very watered down version of that. But Josh says, if you're looking for a game to stream, consider Vainglory. I've never heard of that, so I'll have to check that out. Greg says, oh yeah, totally. Twitch would be great. Sweet. What is the deal with Dunn's number? Don't know what you're talking about. Greg says, from console or PC? So Greg, it's going to be, I mean, I play Xbox mostly, but you know, things like if I play any Blizzard games like Heroes of the Storm or Hearthstone, that would be from PC. So it'd be a mix of both depending on what game I'm playing. I'm also going to play some Nintendo Switch games. But again, it's just the idea is just have fun with the community, play some games, and hopefully bring in, you know, like I said, people from the community to play with. Again, just be kind of like a hangout, kind of just like this, except be playing video games. Hey Sean, one question. Is there a difference between var initializing array and my array to remove all cleanup? To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I mean, you're going to accomplish the same thing. I'd have to look into the performance stuff. Off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure. Julikin says, hi Sean, do you use MVC or some other architecture for a Luna app? If MVC, how do you handle the logics? And by that, I mean, what? and by how, I mean where. I don't know what that means. Oh, where do you put the logic? Good luck with the interview. So I'll answer the basics of that question. We just use MVC. We use a lot of composition and like child view controllers. That kind of gets us away from the massive view controller. But I'm not sure what you mean by like the rest of the question. Like, where do you put the logic in other files? I don't know how to answer that. Lonnie says that you definitely watch, talking about the Twitch stream. Noah Woodward says, I would absolutely be down to play some 2K or some Madden. Yeah, and that's the idea. Just be a wide variety of games because I know everybody has different gaming tastes. So, yeah. Ivar says, Sean, I really care but don't have time for all the content. Would open stream periodically, but that is the middle of my workday. Yep, completely understand, Ivar. No worries. Radical says, how do you balance having a full-time job and produce so much content at the same time? Can you give some insight into your daily schedule? Sure. So it's rough. I basically have given up my social life. I've said this before. But at the same time, I also consider like basketball my social life because I've been playing with those guys for 3-4 years now. We're all friends. It's been the same group of guys and there's like 50 people there. So when I play basketball 3 to 4 days a week for 3 hours at a time, that's kind of like hanging out with my friends for 3 to 4 hours a day, 3 to 4 times a week. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I get my exercise and my social kind of in one place, one time, which frees up, you know, basically all my other time to do podcasts, YouTube videos, and content. So yeah, I basically just gave up social life. Like like today, Sunday, like everybody likes to probably chill on their weekends, just watch TV. I'm working all day today. I always call it Content Creation Sunday because that's when I do a lot of my stuff. So obviously I'm doing this live stream, editing a podcast, I'm recording a tutorial, and I'm recording Swift News here today too. So basically my Sundays are always just completely blocked off. I call them Content Creation Sundays. And that's where I usually knock out 2 videos, a podcast. So that's when I do most of it. But then oftentimes, sometimes you'll see like Swift News or when I'm recording a video, always look at the time in the upper on my menu bar. Like sometimes you'll see me doing those at like 5:30 in the morning. So sometimes I get up really, really early too, to get it done. But at the end of the day, like I think this YouTube channel, this online business, the podcast, like there's so much potential here to grow into not only doing it full time, but being very, very successful. And again, I'm talking in like 3 to 5 years. I'm not saying tomorrow this is going to happen, but if I keep this pace up and keep doing this in 3 to 5 years, like I think this can be very, very big, and you know I can be doing it full time. So there's a prize at the end of the tunnel, if you will. So I'm hoping all this hard work is worth it. But that's kind of some insights into how I knock out all this content. Anant says, what do you think should be the minimum time for your app to start earning from ads? How to increase your search optimization? I don't know. I don't agree with ads in apps. I don't want to answer this question because I'll probably bash it. I understand app developers need to make money, but I'm not a fan of I will never put ads in any of my apps that I create. I would rather put it out there for free. But anyway, do you think it'll ever be okay, you already asked that. Josh Adams says, I actually was a child prodigy, started coding at 9. See, that's awesome. And that's what I always, like, I wish. I'm so jealous of that, Josh. Like, I see what I've done from, age 32 to now I'm 37 and how far I've come in my knowledge. I always think, like, man, even if I started at like 27, right, 5 years earlier, like where I would be. Like, so I can't even imagine if I did start as a child. So I think that's awesome. Very, very jealous of that. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Sandosh says, my company just moved a tester to iOS development, and since I am only iOS developer, it's my job to train him. So you're training a tester. But having only 1 year of experience, myself, I have no idea how to guide him. Any tips? Not really. I've never had to be in that position where, like, I'm trying to teach somebody when I don't know it myself. And it's a different, like, profession, right? He's a tester, so that's completely different as well. So yeah, so not sure what to tell you there, Sandosh. Sorry. Ivar says, 5 more cents on age. He's 43, pro developer for a bit, more than a year and a half. No problems to work remotely. Just get very good feedback about my overall experience. Age when landed the last job. Yeah, I actually, Avars brings up a good point. I think age is almost an asset more so than a detractor in most people's eyes. And again, what I always say about this industry is it's like a meritocracy. Like if you have an awesome portfolio of kick-ass apps on the App Store, like that's all people care about. Like for what I see anyway here in Silicon Valley, like they don't care if you're 50 or 22. If you can do the job and do it well and perform at a high level, like you're going to be fine. So like Avar says, like just create a good portfolio, have a good experience. I think age is an asset more so than a detractor. Alejandro says, hey, Sean, do you or will you make a tutorial about custom camera and filters on iOS? I have that on my to-do list, my ridiculously long to-do list for videos. So someday is the answer. I don't know when I'll get to it, but it's on the list. Yick says, stream The Division. The Division 2 is on my list of games to check out for sure. Radical says, why are you changing your job? Because let me get a drink here. I'm changing my job because my whole career has been spent building apps from like file new to launching version 1.0. So the whole development cycle, there's never any users. We're always iterating, constantly changing. And don't get me wrong, like I love this type of development. It's always so fun. I have so much impact on the direction of the product. But at the same time, I don't have any experience working at a major company like a YouTube where when I push a change to the code, that's affecting millions of people. And that's a completely different development world, right? You have so much more, QA and testing is involved and different, when you're working on a team of 10 to 20 developers is vastly different than working by yourself. So anyway, it's just two different worlds of development. And I love this world of building apps from scratch to launch and having basically owning the code base myself. Like I love that, but I feel like I'm missing out on 50% of how development works, or whatever, a whole new world. So basically I just want to get experience in that world. So that's that. And then he says, how do you come up with the new ideas for videos and podcasts? Really, like I said, for the videos and tutorials, it's just, what am I working on day to day? For example, I just used the reachability framework the other day. So I'm like, okay, cool. Make a video about that. Podcast shows, I don't know. They just kind of pop into my head. Like the most recent one was the first month that I'm doing with Chris, the new hire, where we talk about his first month as his first ever iOS developer job. And that was just because I thought people would find it interesting. I always try to put myself back in, maybe in your shoes, back when I was learning iOS development and I was listening to podcasts, I was watching YouTube videos. Like what would I have wanted to watch? It's kind of what I always kind of say. And so you're seeing that a little bit in the types of shows that I'm producing, on the podcast or on the videos. Like I said, I always wanted to know, like, what was it really, really like, day to day. So I'm trying to show that. What's your thoughts about implementing TDD? I'm not super familiar with it, so I don't really have any thoughts on it. My initial thoughts, again, I'm not going to claim like I'm an expert. It feels pretty tedious, like to write the test before all that happens. Another super chat for Harinder Rana. Appreciate that so much. Says, thank you for teaching us. You're very welcome. This is the that's what I love about doing this, is the fulfillment I get, like knowing that I'm helping a lot of people and, impacting a lot of people's lives. So you're very, very welcome. Thank you so much for the super chat. I greatly appreciate that. Josh Adams says, congrats, Avars. What sort of work were you doing before software? Okay, so I won't jump into that conversation. You guys are talking. What book would you recommend when I've just learned Swift syntax but would like to start building apps? Have no previous dev experience. I would check out the Hacking with Swift book. Again, links in the description. You build like 40 apps or something. I can't remember the number. Maybe it's 40. You build a lot of apps in that book. So definitely check that out. Link in the description. Josh Adams says, the Dunn's number is required to release paid apps in the App Store. Okay. I don't know. I just never looked at that. Usually when I'm building the app, somebody else is handling all the App Store stuff, right? I'm just building it and delivering it to the client or delivering it to somebody else. Max Code says same. Yep. Sundays are a good day full time. Yep. Appreciate that, Max. Good to see you. Yeah, basically Sunday's blocked off. Content creation Sunday. That's what I call it. Noah Woodward. Do you think leveraging Twitch for coding content too, or just gaming? My initial thought is just gaming, just because it's a change of pace. Like I said before, I'm not sure if you were here in the chat, but like you're going to see a very, very different Sean too. So I think that's kind of cool to show like another side of me. Whereas coding, you'd probably see the same side of me. But yeah, initially gaming. We'll see though. I mean, everything I do is an experiment. So we'll see if there's a yearn for coding, then yeah, maybe I'll switch to that. But the initial thought is to stick with gaming, just to have fun. Because again, the whole point was just to hang out with the community, relax, chill, and build like deeper relationships. And at the end of the day, like it's networking. As silly as that sounds, like again, if we're going to be bringing in people from the community to play video games, like you're having fun hanging out with people. That's really what networking is. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So happy to hear a lot of people were interested in that, and we'll be on the lookout for that. That's still like a month or two away, but I'm just kind of testing the waters right now. Igor says, I'm really a fan of you. Keep going. I'm starting off with Swift and iOS. Hope to start full-time job soon. Best of luck. Hey, Sean, how do you handle temporary UI views in apps? What do you mean temporary UI views? Adding subview and remove it from the super view later, or add subview and fade in, fade out from the screen, which is a better solution? I don't know off the top of my head. It depends. With every answer, it always depends, right? So I think I'm trying to think of what I'm doing in my current app. I think I'm just always having it there, fading in, fading out, but it's just one little pop-up. Yeah, I don't know, performance-wise. I don't know, to be honest with you, off the top of my head. Max Code says, yeah, true, just put in, yep, ads are the way to go. Ads are not the way to go, yeah, for sure. Definitely agree, don't put the ads in there. Sean said, or someone no name says, do you like Windows? Do you play video games on iPhone? There's a lot of questions. What is your final goal in iOS development? Whew, that's a lot to throw at me. I never use Windows. Do you play video games? We just talked about that. Yep, on console. What is my final goal in iOS development? Final goal is I want to be content creating full time, but that's 3 years away probably. Again, I want to get that chapter at a large company, so I have that knowledge and that experience, because then I'll feel like I have a lot to give, for content creation wise, right? Like I spent a lot of my career building small startups. I did a whole year and a half being an independent contractor. And then if I do another chapter at a large company, like I feel like I've checked all the boxes, and then I can switch to content creation full time and have like all the knowledge to be able to, not all the knowledge, that's pretty arrogant, but have a lot of knowledge to give once I've done all that stuff. But again, we're probably 3 years away from that. So that is the final goal. VJ says, watch your iOSCon video in Xcode in 45 minutes today. Learned many cool tricks. Thanks a lot. Glad you like that. Appreciate it. Hugo says, would you consider joining our iOS team in Cape Town? It's pretty far away. I don't know about that. Max Code says, bro, I feel the same way. I've worked as a web developer and even an iOS developer, and my courses are making enough money for me to not work, but I want that type. Yeah, exactly. Like I could go full time right now, just doing YouTube content creation. I would have to probably have a small contract on the side, but like if I really, really wanted to, I could go full-time content creation and be fine. But like Max kind of just says, I feel like I'd be selling myself short going too early, because like I said, that's the end goal, but I can only, like, I want to get all this experience before I do that. So yeah, we'll get there. Quentin says, Katura or Vapor, and do you think Apple will add web development support to Xcode? So I haven't used either of them. I haven't messed with server-side Swift yet, to be honest with you, so I don't have an opinion there. Favors the bold. Hey, Sean, I was wondering what you were doing differently to prepare for these big company interviews. So I talked about that at the top of the show. It has been a while, so I'll kind of briefly go over it. But if you want the full in-depth answer, watch the replay, and it's like the first 10 minutes of the show. I talk a lot about that. But essentially, I am really narrowing down or really working on the UI kit fundamentals and like the big iOS fundamentals, not like Swift specific stuff, because the jobs at like YouTube and stuff, they don't use Swift. So all the iOS portions of the interview are going to be more just general iOS UI kit type stuff, not language specific. So I'm focusing on that. And I'm using a website called Interview Cake to it's kind of like LeetCode, I guess, to kind of like run through all the data structures and algorithms, do a bunch of practice problems, all that stuff. So that's my plan of attack. Robert Ramirez says, have you thought about making an app with your iOS community, not to release on the App Store, but just to learn iOS concept? Yeah, this idea has been brought up a lot, and I really love the idea. It's just a very time-consuming idea, right? Like if I'm like reviewing people's pull requests and all that stuff, and it's like because the idea was like an open source app that we all build together. And it's just like, it's a great idea. I love it. I think it would be awesome. That's just very, very time-consuming. And time is something I have very, very little of right now. Like I'm already stretched like way too thin. Miguel says, hi, Sean. I bet you'll be doing some videos about soft skills now that you are switching jobs and joining a team. Looking forward to watching those. Yeah, I've always said I think soft skills are more important than the technical skills because I think you can teach the technical skills. Like give somebody who has the desire and the attitude and the drive to learn, you can teach them the technical skills. If people's personality that they've had their entire life, it's hard to change that, right? It's hard to teach somebody not to be an asshole. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's easier to teach the code in my opinion. So I do a lot of videos about that anyway, but yeah, you'll probably always see videos on that because I do believe they're pretty important. Did you ever work on MQT or PubNub? Nope, I haven't. I've been to PubNub for a meetup, but I've never actually used it. Pablo says, hello, Sean. Can you give some insight on how likely it is for Silicon Valley companies to hire developers from a different country where a work visa is needed to work in the U.S.? They hire all the time. Now, I would say and again, I'm not a hiring manager. Take this with a grain of salt. This is not coming from an expert. But from what I've seen is that it's harder for smaller startups to do that because there's a lot of like paperwork involved. Like, for example, when we just made this hire, we didn't do any visas because, again, we're a 4-person startup. We don't have like an HR team to handle all the paperwork and everything like that. And we're trying to build this thing as fast as possible. It's just a lot for a small company to take on. So I would look for the larger companies who have like an HR department to handle that. But again, I'm not an expert, so do what you will with that. Hi, I implemented Firebase auth into my app. So I've never used Firebase. I've said this a bunch of times. Not that I have anything against it. It's just all the projects I've worked on have been full-time backend, like custom backend solution. Like we don't deal with like Firebase. So I just don't have any experience with it. So any Firebase questions, I can't really answer here. Chris Hefferman says, just started a meetup group in Swindon, UK, near Bath, Bristol. Cool. Was just there. I'm not sure if you saw that. And had 10 participants join. Then no one responded to the first meetup date. What are your thoughts on meetups, worthwhile or a waste? So I think this depends on your market. And it sounds like you have, I'm not sure how many developers are in that area. But so my opinions are always skewed. Because like I live in Silicon Valley, it's the center of everything. So meetups here are amazing, but that's because there's so many developers in this city. I understand in a smaller city, meetups might not be so amazing. So I wouldn't give up after one. I would still keep trying to put the word out. Keep trying. If after 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, it's still not working out, then I would maybe give up on it. But if you can get a good meetup going, I think they're awesome. I think it's maybe hard to get a good meetup going though, but I would still put in the effort because if you can do it, it's worthwhile. Volodymyr says, hi Sean, I had an internship as a full stack dev. I am not a Swift expert, but I can write some code. I have many contributions to Swift open source projects. How long might it take to master Swift and get a job? Master Swift is a very, very long time. Like maybe that's just a bad word to use, but and this is always such a hard question to answer because it's different for everybody. Some people it takes 6 months to land a job. Some people it takes 2 years and everything in between. It's just a very vague and open-ended question that's no matter what answer I tell you will probably be wrong. So it's hard to answer. Atirek says, I want to ask, is it useful to learn RxWif? Sure. A lot of companies are using it. A lot of people like it. It's just a certain way of doing things. So it's useful if you go to a company that uses it. If you go to a company that doesn't use it, not so much. But it's definitely, it's not uncommon, I should say. So yeah, I'd learn it. Any plans for making course for beginners? Yes. So the first course I'm making is, because I get the question answered all the time, when am I ready to start applying for jobs, that kind of stuff. So the first course I'm making is going to be all about the take-home project. We're going to build a take-home project together, and then that will help you answer the question, hey, if you can do this take-home project and you understood what was going on, then you're good to go. And sorry, super chat popped in, distracted me. I'll get to that in a second. Or it can be used as like practice for job prep, just kind of walk through a take-home project. So that is kind of geared more towards beginners, but not a specific, like, here's what a variable is. Here's how you put a view onto the storyboard. Not quite that beginner, but yeah, we'll see. So super chat by Javier Gomez says, thanks for all the help. I appreciate that, Javier. Thank you so much for the generosity. That's awesome. Let me know, Javier, what do you get the most help from? I'm curious. Podcasts, the videos, the tutorials, Swift news. Because I do like a lot of different stuff, I'm always curious what people find like the most impactful. So Javier, if you could kind of answer that question, that'd be awesome. And I, again, appreciate the generosity. Glenn Adams, LOL about assholes. That's funny. Yeah. Like I always say, like when you're on a team, you spend more time with these people at work than you do with your family. So you have to get along with them. You have to like them. Gigi says, which topics will you teach us in your upcoming tutorials? Thanks a lot. Let me look at my video idea list here. My tutorial videos coming out. I have if you've heard of the Macaw framework, I have a sponsored tutorial coming up with them soon. That's kind of like how to build graphs and charts in that. And yeah, other than that, I have this ridiculously long list of video ideas that I'm looking at that I just kind of yank from every once in a while. Yeah, well, I guess you'll just have to wait and see. I don't really have like a plan. Like I said, I just have this ridiculously long list, and then I just kind of look at the list and like, what do I feel like making today? Okay, cool, I'll make that. And then some things are just spur of the moment. Like one of my recent videos about the wireless charging, like that was literally like when I tell the story at the beginning of the video, how I was laying in bed trying to build an animation or test an animation. Like that's really what happened. And then, so I had the idea, and then literally 20 minutes later, I was filming that video, and it was just a real quick, 2-minute video. So sometimes they're very spur of the moment if something just happens to me in my work life. And then other times, it's like, okay, what do I want to make? And then I go through the list. Mark Moikin's in the house. What's going on, Mark? Mark says it's hard to teach someone not to be an asshole. And he laughs. A lot of people like that line. It's so true. Imran says, hi, I want to start iOS development. Well, where to start? Please help. Again, YouTube channels like Mark's right above me, mine, Brian Vaughn, or I have links in the description to hackingwithswift.com or Ray Wenderlich's site. So there's 5 examples, and if you go through all 5 of those YouTube channels and websites, like there's a ton of content there. Kieran Hamill says, how much can you earn via YouTube? You said you can almost go 100% content creation. Rent in SF is crazy, right? Well, yeah, Kieran, that would require me to leave San Francisco, or at least leave I live in a pretty nice location, leave my location. So yeah, but it wouldn't just be 100% like ad revenue. I would start building the business up more around it. Like I would probably do a lot more one-on-one coaching. Right now, I do like 1 student at a time. If I was going full-time, I might do like 3 to 4 students at a time. Again, like I said, I would probably take on a small contract. I would start creating my own indie apps, start making some revenue off the App Store. There's just a lot more. I'd have a lot more time freed up to make more money from the content. Right now, like the income I get from the content isn't enough to pay my bills, but if I went full-time, there's a hell of a lot more that I could be doing to generate more income. For example, I could be creating more courses. I have so many book ideas that I would put out. So it's more of a matter of like my time would be freed up to allow me to do the things to make revenue, more so than like I'm making that revenue right now, if that makes sense. Josh Adams says he uses PubNub. It said it's great. So yeah, hook up with Josh and ask him about that. James Taylor says, after visiting London, would you ever consider moving here if a job opportunity came up? James, it's funny. I said that. Like, I really liked London a lot. And like, I'm older now, I'm 37. So I'm to the point where it's like, all right, it might be time to like wife, kids, family, settle down time. So I probably wouldn't do it now, but I did say that. I was like, man, if I was like 25 or something like that, I would absolutely do a couple years in London. Like I really liked it a lot. I like the vibe there. But again, where I'm at in my life, I'm probably not looking to move countries right now, but I liked it a lot. And I definitely will be coming back, not right away, but for sure in the future. If iOS Con will have me again in a couple years, I'd absolutely love to do it. How comfortable are you with trees and graphs? Not very. I mean, trees, yeah, I would say I'm kind of comfortable with trees. Graphs, not so much. I know the basics, but when you say comfortable, I assume you mean like, yeah, I can do that in my sleep. Definitely not. Reza says, hi again, I'm 20 and I study software engineering. It's about 10 months I started iOS and now there's a project I can accept, kind of a big project. I think I can make it. Do you think I can, or is it too soon? Reza, I would have to know a lot more about you and the project to like give you an accurate answer on this. And when you say it's a kind of a big project, so I'll give you just what you got to worry about. You have to worry about biting off more than you can chew too soon, and then like kind of like ruining that project and giving yourself like a bad, right? Because reputation matters a lot in this kind of industry, especially when you're contracting, because like a lot of the contracts you get will be from word of mouth. And if you try to take on this project and you mess it up because you're not ready, it's going to be like a black eye on your resume kind of thing. So I would be careful of that. But the flip side of that is if you take on this project and you do amazing, you do awesome, now that's a good thing on your resume. So it's really hard to answer, but it's an opportunity if you do a very good job on it to like really jumpstart your career. But again, the risk is if you fail, it's probably not a good look. Woba says, would you do any Vapor server-side Swift videos? When I learn it. I've never used it, so can't really do a video on it when I haven't done it yet. But they will come in the future. And again, kind of what I was just talking about, going full time. Hold on one second. Like, would I go full time and I can just have the time to like learn stuff just for the video? Like first of all, when I go full time, I'll be doing daily videos. So yeah, I'll have to like definitely spread the content out. But like I said, I have a full-time job, playing basketball, doing this YouTube channel. Like it's just, my time is very, very limited. Robert Ramiro says, do you have to have a business to get access to the movie database API? So I think Robert's asking this because the take-home project I gave for my job interview used the movie database API to have them make like a quick little app. So the answer is no. You can just sign up for the movie database API and then you can get an API key and start making your own stuff. That's why you see a lot of like tutorials will use this API. You see it used a lot. Otto says, how do you get your app project ideas? So I don't really make a lot of apps. Like obviously building an app is my full-time job, but it's not like I have like 20 apps in the app store. So app ideas, I do have an idea for a game I want to build. That'll be the next thing I build when I do build my app. But project ideas, I have a ton of project ideas. They just don't always are like app projects. Like I said, like this starting up a Twitch channel kind of thing that I've been talking about. Justin says, hey Sean, how did you learn data structures and algorithms for Swift? So I learned when I first learned, so I've been learning it so every time I go for interviews is when I start learning this stuff or start reviewing it. So the first time I learned was Cracking the Coding interview, and then the YouTube channel Hacker Rank, which is by the lady who wrote Cracking the Coding interview. And so that's how I like learned initially. And then just other various books I've been reviewing. Like I said, I'm using the website Interview Cake right now to prep for these interviews. But yeah, so I initially learned with Cracking the Coding interview, basically. What is the backend stack you come across for mobile app development? Your experience, what's most popular? So I don't really deal with this stuff. Like I said, usually when I'm building an app, there's a separate backend web developer who's building all that. I know we've used the mean stack. Was that Mongo, Express, Angular, Node? I've seen that a lot, but again, I'm not an expert in backend things. I just consume the API. like give me a well-documented API, I'm good. Anyway, Javier Gomez says, the things that everyone should know, but few really know how to explain. Simple things like classes versus struct. I think that's what Javier says, what he found most useful here. So appreciate the insight there, Javier. Favors the Bold says, hey, Sean, I was wondering what you were doing to prep and learn more about UIKit, UI Responder, and all that. Also, I watched the beginning. Thanks. Yeah, so I haven't really gotten into that yet. I don't know. I got to like sit down and like really think about it. I know So I'm thinking back to some of my old interview questions where, I had to like navigate through a tree of views and like hit test to find out like where the tap was in a specific view. So you're kind of going through the tree of UI views, like subviews and that stuff. Responder chain is one, like building a little app where you're like dragging and dropping, like picture like your desktop where you can drag a file into the trash can. Like you can do that in the app where you like, tap and hold to drag it and drag it into the trash can and like delete the file. Like those are some previous interview questions I've had. So just stuff like that, more so than like how to use Swift kind of thing. Noah Woodward says, we should do a community meetup for interview prep. I got a final round of Lyft, and I think it would be cool to study with other iOS developers. Yeah, Noah, hit me up on DMs. Let me know when your interview is with Lyft. Lyft is in my second round of companies to apply to if this first round doesn't work out. Mark Moykin says, Sean, you can always come to Utah, Silicon Slopes. Everybody's got a Silicon, there's Silicon Alley in New York. There's Silicon whatever. Never heard Silicon Slopes. That's funny. But we have a shortage of devs, lots of demand, way lower housing costs, tons of content creators. I did notice that. Like, can we talk about that, Mark? And Max, if you're still here, like, why are there so many content creators in Utah? Like, I don't know. You're right, though. Like, there's a ton. Jeffrey Chang says, can I try your take-home project? I'm doing my course all about it. So yeah, then you can. Mark says a lot of ex-Apple employees, for example, you could be hanging out with Dave DeLong every Thursday, coding and hanging out with other devs. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that Utah does have a good iOS dev community now that you're pointing it out. We have our own Slack Utah community with tons of support of iOS devs, get insights, and a lot of different companies in the Valley through the community. So yeah, but by no means is Silicon Valley the end-all be-all in the United States. It's certainly the center of it all, but as Mark is pointing out, there's also a bunch of little pockets all around the country where there's plenty of devs and a great community. All right, I'm going to go for about 5 more minutes. Looks like there's only a couple more questions. So if you have any last-second questions, go ahead and get them in now. I'm going to go into a little bit of rapid-fire mode, and then we'll call it a day. And if you are waiting around, Paul Hudson's doing his live stream in about 8 minutes where he'll build an app with you. Check that out. His YouTube channel, I believe it's just Paul Hudson. I don't know if it's Hacking with Swift or Paul Hudson. Can't remember. But anyway, I'll answer these last few questions, and then we'll wrap up. Aegon the Conqueror says, I love the video you posted about the developer you picked to replace you at your company. To see someone who looks like me and come from where I'm from motivates me to push harder. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to feature Chris. I think he has a good story and wanted to put that out there for a lot to see. And like I said, I think it's just good to see what a first-time developer is going through as he begins a brand new career. Favors the Bolt says, did you finish cracking the coding interview cover to cover? Thanks, Sean. Good information. No. So the first 25% of cracking the coding interview is where they teach you about the data structures. And then the last 75%, and it's a really, really thick book, is all practice problems. And there's 180 something practice problems. So no, I didn't do all those practice problems, but I did read obviously all the learning and did a lot of practice problems, but I wouldn't call it cover to cover. I was wondering, is there a way to submit a request to talk at the next iOS Con? Yeah, they put their call for papers is what they call it. I think I did mine in December and the conference was in March. So probably December of this year, I would start going to their website and looking, follow them on Twitter. They'll put it out there. And then, yeah, they'll put that out. You just apply for your talk. And if you get selected, you're talking. Have you any experience working with ARKit so you can share your thoughts about it? Just the basics. I did some basic getting started with ARKit videos, but I haven't made I haven't made a substantial app with it. Quentin says, "Hey Sean, would you think about picking up C++ for coding interviews plus iOS development?" Not really. No, there's no way to expand on that. I don't want to learn a language just for coding interviews. It seems a bit much. Otto says, would you recommend a newer developer to develop their own apps or start contracting? If you're relying on the income, contracting. If you're trying to pay your bills and pay your rent, I wouldn't try to make it in the App Store. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very hard to make enough to make a living off your own independent apps. So what I would do is I would start contracting to cover your rent and then maybe build your own apps on the side to start building a portfolio of apps that could eventually, make enough income to do that full time. Noah says, do you think giving developer talks at a conference can be a full-time job? I don't think so. I didn't get paid to do it. I don't know if there's any developers getting paid to speak in the iOS community anyway. So I would say no. You get your travel, taken care of for the most part, but you're not making an income on top of that. For how long have the new employees been coding in Swift for? About, I don't know, a year and a half, I think. I know I did a couple boot camps before. I can't remember. One Strap Photo says, videos are always fire. Thank you. Appreciate that. And then last question before I wrap up. Volodymyr said, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I apologize. Are you coming to Toronto for Swift conference in August? No, I am not. So I'm going to try to do one speaking gig a year. Because like I said, it was a lot, like coming up with the talk, building the talk, preparing, practicing, international travel. Like it's a lot. And I already have a lot going on with the YouTube channel, full-time job, all that stuff. So I think I'm only going to do that once a year. So I've already done my 2019 talk, and I think I'm going to target NS Spain in 2020. But yeah, it's just it's a lot for to do. So all right, that's going to wrap it up for this. One last question, maybe? One slid in there last second. Would you say the movie database API is a good start to learn more about APIs, connecting them with Swift? I would. I would start with that and start playing around with that. Start trying to create your own app for sure. It's not super basic, but it's not super advanced either. I think you'll get some good learning. So, all right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next time.